Good afternoon and welcome to MiHUB Monday for November the 21st, 2022. We will begin our webinar in approximately 2 minutes. Thank you for joining us today. Good afternoon, everyone. For those who are joining, we will begin in approximately 60 seconds. And thank you for joining MiHUB Monday on November the 21st, 2022. Hello, my name is Scott Phillips, and I am the director of the Mid-Atlantic MBDA Advanced Manufacturing Center located here in Baltimore, Maryland. Thank you for joining us today for another in our MiHUB Monday webinar series. Today, we're going to be discussing tracking the dollars, federal initiatives. We have a wonderful panel to include our client spotlight of the month, Ms. Natalia Louise from M. Louise Products. We also have Mr. Terrance Taylor, the District Director for Congressman Steny and DeMarcus Walker, Research Assistant for the Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship. Well, MiHUB Monday. For those who've attended before, you understand that MiHUB Monday is an event that we host that is sponsored not only by the MBDA Advanced Manufacturing Center, but the MiHUB Cooperative. The MiHUB Cooperative is a jointly owned and operated manufacturing cooperative that attempts and is focused on growing minority manufacturers. Companies come together as shareholders and they support each other and build their businesses. They come together with a number of stakeholders to include the AMC, to include academia, government, and philanthropy. And for those who are interested in learning more about the co-op, I'm asking you to send a note to info@mihubcoop.com. And we'll probably talk more about the co-op as we go. Well, today, once again, we have a wonderful panel. And we always like to start our MiHUB Mondays with a client spotlight. And I am extremely excited today to have a friend, an entrepreneur, a young lady who, with her sister, had broken a number of glass ceilings, and that would be Natalia Louise from M. Louise Products. Natalia, if you could join us.
Hi,
how
Scott.
are you today? Hey,
I'm
how are
doing
you?
great. I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. Excellent, excellent. So Natalia, I could go on and on about you and your business, but I'd like to give you some time to introduce yourself and talk about M. Louise Products.
Well, absolutely, Scott. First, and foremost, I wanted to thank you and everyone at the MBA Center for all of the work that you do to help us in our local economy, build out programming and networking and connectivity. The work that you do is so admired by all of us, and we show up to the table every time because we trust you and because we believe in everything that you and your team are doing. So most importantly, thank you for putting us all together and for building the community that you're building. MLO's products actually was developed as a result of market conditions. MLO's construction was started by my mom and dad in 1985 as a local, very, very small MBE business, and working on incredibly small work, initially new concrete site development, and then graduated to doing a little bit of asphalt patching and then utility adjustments. And little by little, we grew. When we started bidding and being awarded some of the larger work, it became a little more complicated in that it was hard to get contracts with big mill and overlay programming and still be economically viable in a very, very competitive industry. And what we found is that if we wanted to be successful in doing this and in growing our business, that we had to vertically integrate. And so we started by adding gradles and then paving machines, but small ones, and rollers. And then we got to mill and overlay, and we realized we couldn't get our subcontractors to show up in the timeline that we needed them. And we did not have the financial wherewithal to incur delays or incur liquidated damages because our subcontractors could not show up. So we bought milling machines, paving machines, and eventually we became one of the contractors in the area that could both GC and subcontract. In that note, then it became hard to get materials flowing to our projects in a consistent way. We were always at, the schedule of other manufacturers in the area that did obviously prioritize their own jobs versus other people's jobs. It's not that it was irrational, but it wasn't conducive to growth within our business. And as a result of that, we then purchased an asphalt plant in Rockville, Maryland. And lo and behold, within 3 years, we had 5x the build out of the output in that plant. And I think the reason that we did that is we brought a contractor conscience back to manufacturing. We opened up day and night, Mondays or Sundays. When you needed the work, we were going to open up for you. The other thing I think that we did that gave a lot of heart back to the community is that we did not ship our trucks and get them in front of our clients' trucks. So our own projects needed to wait in line like everyone else's projects. And I thought just bringing that kind of just fairness back into an operational platform where dollars and hours make or break projects. And so I think we're really successful there. We then partnered with Reliable and leased out one of their plants that they had in the Glen Burnie area and did long-term leasing with them and brought that plant up to a level that it hadn't really necessarily performed in a while. And I think part of that was in that first year that we started working out of that plant, we opened up 178 new accounts. And the way we did that was that we put out a call out for all of the MBEs and WBs in the area that may have difficulty obtaining credit, that might not have previously fit a financial matrix where most multi-generational or multinational companies have to abide by. I mean, they are as complex and as difficult as any banking financial matrix to get a loan. And what we did is Steny and I asked our team to come back to us with a reason why they could not open credit. And that reason had to be really extraordinary. So as you might imagine, our team said yes a lot because that was the initiative. If you wanted credit, if you wanted to develop credit, M. Lewis Products was going to help you develop that credit. I'm very proud of the fact that we've got a couple hundred contractors now in our mix that not only are purchasing from us, but they're purchasing from everyone else because they've now been able to develop credit in a way that maybe they hadn't been able to develop before. Obviously, that's worked for and against me because if I'm not price competitive, they're going to go elsewhere and they're going to have options. But isn't that part of what we're supposed to do, right? Isn't that part of the work? I believe it is. In terms of opportunities that are coming up with the infrastructure bill and the Make It in America, Steny and I have been speaking till we're blue in the face for the last couple of decades that we need to bring manufacturing back to America. We need to re-up our school system so that trade schools and skill schools are not a secondary, socially unacceptable educational platform. Everyone else in the world has them, and that is how economies are built. You don't have to go to college anymore to make a very decent living. In fact, in so many of our jobs these days, not going to college, going to a trade school or getting a 2-year program or going directly into an industry where you can be taught and trained in skill sets that in 4 years you haven't spent $100,000 on a college education. In fact, you've been saving money for a home or for whatever it is that you'd like to pursue. I think it's really incredibly important, and I think that we're on the right track to getting there. One of my concerns, just on behalf of the MBE and WBE program, is as we disseminate federal dollars with this infrastructure bill, to make sure that we have reciprocal agreements, MBE and WBE agreements that, like we did at the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, which Mr. Taylor so kindly brought up in our pre-call, that we allow the largest portion of our MBE, WBE economic portfolio to be included in the work. These contracts are large, and you want to have as many MBEs and WBEs viably at the table as possible. And when you use contracting methodologies that include reciprocal agreements, whether they're city, jurisdictional, county, state, federal, you open up a community of workforce that is typically limited under normal contract requirements. So I would encourage our civic leaders to really take a hard look at this, because if you want to see impact in your MBE and WBE community, that's how you do it. That's how you're going to get it. And that's how you're going to get the most competitive pricing with the largest amount of a diverse working environment that you can get. So on those notes, I don't know, Scott, if you want me to continue, or maybe we'll give someone else another turn.
No, I appreciate your comments and your work. As you know, I'm a big fan of how you have approached the work with subcontractors and smaller contractors using your facility, right? The idea that you're providing credit, that is in keeping with what we're attempting to do with the co-op, right? Because as minority businesses, if we don't look at ways of supporting other minority businesses, then I think we are failing to grow not only our own business, but our industries and our communities. Can you talk about your work in the community, right? Because I know that what you do with those smaller vendors that come in to leverage your facility is also part of your mission to grow communities around your facilities. If you could share that.
Absolutely. So whether it's opening credit to companies that wouldn't necessarily meet the matrices. By the way, out of those 178 new accounts that we opened up that year, only 2 didn't pay their bill on time. And I think people need to think about that. You know, our community has such high honor, such high work ethic, represents so much life and soul that is all around us. And I think that many of the times, some of the challenges that I see sometimes is that we find ourselves competing for the same small portion of work that's available. And I think one of the things that I like to work on, and I try to inspire all of us to do, is to work together to help build each other up, to make sure we're listening to another, to not fight about whether this community of MBE or this community of WBE is more important than this. We're all in this together. If we're constantly fighting for the same little piece of work, then we're not looking at the big picture. And I try to inspire people to really do that. When it comes to, for instance, our working environment, I really challenge, and my sister really challenges our executive team and every one of our leaders out in the field to employ people that look like us. That means veterans. That means second chance hires, folks who've been previously incarcerated that have served their time, usually for things that they shouldn't have been put in jail for to begin with.
Yeah.
I encourage them to make sure that they're racially, ethnically, religiously, LGBTQI sensitive, so that we bring in a workforce that represents all of our voices working together towards the same goal. One of the most wonderful, remarks that has been made a couple of times is that when you walk into our office or you walk into our job sites, it looks a little bit like the United Nations. And that is something that is really, really important to me. We hire for skill and we look to find everyone who can possibly have that skill, and then we hire accordingly, because I think we need to practice what we preach, and it begins with us.
Well, Natalia, thank you for being such an inspiration. Thank you for not only talking the talk, but walking the talk. I've had the opportunity to visit your facilities, and you're right. It looks like the little UN. So I wanted to kind of start with you, and now I'd like to bring on and kind of segue into Mr. Terrance Taylor, because some of the things that you mentioned when it comes to workforce and workforce development, it comes to investment in our minority businesses. Terrance has been working on with Congressman Steny for a number of years. And so Terrance, I'd like you to come on and talk about Make It in America.
Well, thanks, Scott. Can you hear me fine?
We can.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank Scott and your team and MiHUB for inviting me to participate. I think the work that, Scott, you are doing, I know that Congressman Hoyer has been glad that we supported the effort of standing up MBDA, standing up the Minority Advanced Manufacturing Center. We think it was a good investment that the federal government made, and you continue to show them that this is a good region where we can help minority firms to grow in this sector. And so thank you for the hard work that you're doing. Well, I will try not to make this a boring policy discussion, but as Scott mentioned, an initiative that has been established by Congressman Hoyer for the last 12 years is this Make It in America agenda. And sort of the backdrop on this is One, as that term have a two-pronged meaning that we like to say. One is America is still that place, that shiny city on a hill, that people with aspirations of ideas that can make them come true. We are that city of Oz where we can create a thought and we can turn it into a wonderful product down the road. We are still that place, regardless of it. We're the beacon of the world that people want to come to and to bring those ideas into reality. The second part of that is that in the 20th century, in the 19th century, we used to make stuff in America, and that's what kind of saying. But now in the 21st century, the economy has changed, established. We have to do a lot of things in order to build a manufacturing sector for the 21st century and beyond. And so Make It in America is just not a building thing, but it's the holistic approach that Mr. Hoyer was looking at trying to develop with his colleagues 12 years ago. And it had four pillars to it. It had education, it had entrepreneurship, it have supply chain resiliency, and infrastructure. And as you know, that you need all of those to create the environment, as Natalia was pointing out, they have a really strong manufacturing sector where you can have the workforce that can be trained, quality trained, that can do this type of work. And in 2010, when the Congress was looking at this, it was trying to focus on what are the things that we needed to do in order to create the environment for businesses to innovate, to manufacturing, and to hire people. In America, in the last decade, a couple decades, we have seen to be is a consumer economy. Americans were not, as it were seen, that everything that we were buying was made outside of these shores. And so the Make It in America initiative had to evaluate what do we need to do. As Natalia pointed out, you don't need a college education in order to do a lot of the manufacturing technology things that goes on in company. But we had to build what we needed to do to reinvest into the skills, into the trade. And the trades are a little bit more technical technology, 3D additive manufacturing, where we're incorporating a lot of technology to develop products and stuff. And so we made investment in the high school and community college that they can get the be set up where people can take advantage and train for those type of jobs. I would agree that you don't. I went to Morgan State and Duke University, and I don't think everybody have to go there in order to make a decent living, a living for themselves, to put their children through college, to save for their retirement, and to leave a little money for the next generations to come. But we had to create an environment of jobs and opportunity for people living here to be ready to take advantage of the jobs of the 21st century. And we know what they are today as we look at even in some of the durable good industry, that those goods and products are loaded with technology. And so we have to make sure that our workforce was able to be trained, not that they have to go off and get a computer science degree to learn how to operate, but understanding how to take technology, use that technology like you have a working knowledge of a car, but I'm not a mechanic, but I understand the basic of understanding how my car should operate. And so the Make It in America initiative needed to make sure that our individuals living in this country are capable of being trained and able to take advantage of those jobs that manufacturers will be hiring them in the future. And so that was something that we had to do. And so in 2015, Congressman Hoyer and his colleagues decided that they would do some hearings on Capitol Hill to kind of see from what industry and stakeholders needed them to do as they can kind of work through this legislative process. And like I said, at the legislative level, we're talking about taking these abstract concepts and developing them in some type of public policy framework. And then those policy framework are given down that we create a government that is friendly to manufacturers, to create opportunities for manufacturing, small business and minority firms to access the capital, to be a part, because you cannot operate in this country, as a friend of mine, Stanley Tucker, said, that capitalism without capital is not capitalism. And so we need to make sure that companies like Natalia and other minority firms that are able to not access the type of capitals they need to grow their business and expand. And so in 2015, that's when we rolled out a series of initiatives that we were rolling out. And then we got more back in 2018. We started evaluating where we needed in infrastructure. We needed to make sure that the infrastructure in this country, because manufacturing in America without a strong infrastructure won't work. And the infrastructure is just not the building, but the creating the environment that we have the type of workforce, type of business climate and facilities that companies that are doing the type of work that they are doing can access, that had the necessary infrastructure to support them in that effort. And so we have the last year, when we got with the pandemic, that made us very aware of our vulnerability in a lot of key areas. And you saw that when we had lack of access to semiconductor chip, the lack of access to public personal protection gear. We were dependent on foreign suppliers to get that. And we saw that vulnerability. And we went through and started doing a SWOT analysis of how we are vulnerable in certain areas as it relates to manufacturing. And then Congress was able to pass the CHIP Act. It was able to focus on that, where those semiconductor chips, no matter what you have on you today in your house, you need those type technologies in order for that product to operate. And the pandemic showed that we needed to do better. We also in the sciences, knowing that we had to do something to make sure that our drug supply chain was secure, that we would never be in a situation where we have to be dependent on foreign suppliers for us. And so we are learning from those, and then finally, we would deal in a lifetime that people have seen, we did a major infrastructure bill to address some of the key things. And I know DeMarcus is going to talk about the infrastructure bill, but there were a lot of things in there that is available for minority firms to take advantage of. And I think Natalia had pointed out that in that bill, there are things that I think half of the funds are going, of the $1.2 trillion are going towards transportation initiatives. And so in that issue is from highway to transit to aviation, and then you also have water infrastructure, clean water systems that got to be developed. We also have a charging station that we're building a national network of charging station for EV. And so it's a good time, I think, being an entrepreneur, that you can see that you're on the cutting edge of some of the stuff that we looked when we were kids, that we heard about. You know, we're almost close to the Jetson. If you ever saw that cartoon, we have the Dick Tracy watch with the with the watches and stuff, and we have cell phones that we saw in Star Trek called the intercom, and now we have these things called cellular phones. So the Make It in America initiative is all about creating an environment where entrepreneurs like Natalia and other can grow and can develop without having, they need support. And that's what one of the things, being the wealthiest country in the world, that we never really had a policy recommendation to support manufacturing the way that our other allies might in Europe focus on manufacturing and supporting their manufacturing. And so this was an idea to focus on over the last 12 years, that we brought the coordinated where we had legislation, 23 bills, and I will drop that information into the chat, a link where people can go and pull them up, and they can go through each and every one of them and understand that from the 111th Congress where we started to the 117th Congress where we passed the infrastructure bill, where we passed the CHIP Act, where we have incentives in the Inflation Act. And so those are things that are available to investment that the federal government is trying to make to create this environment that entrepreneurs can grow and support, and their employees and workers can be trained for these jobs that are coming, not yesterday, they're coming down the road. And we have a lot of businesses in Maryland. There's a lot of opportunity for companies to grow and develop in manufacturing, not just only from the public sector, but also the private sector too. So I want to thank you for allowing me to come. I will put the information, more of the 23 bills that we have done, and we can go through a Q&A session, and I can try my best to respond to your question. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much, Terrance. Now, you raised a couple of things, so I know we already have some questions in the chat as it relates to it, but in terms of investment in minority-owned businesses, particularly around manufacturing, one of the challenges is the ability to invest in advanced technologies to improve efficiency and improve production for minority manufacturers. And that is in industrial manufacturing, whether we're talking about asphalt like Natalia, or food processing, or clothing production. Those dollars don't seem to be making their way to minority businesses. There's Kenneth Canty, who's one of our clients, said that he has heard that there is money available for, in essence, innovation and to support minority manufacturers that is going to come through state legislatures or through state government, right? Federal dollars going to state governments to invest in manufacturers and invest in innovation. Do you have any background on that? Could you share your thoughts on that? And can you talk really about what are the federal initiatives that are really focused on minority entrepreneurs?
Oh, well, I would say on the first phase of creating investments at the federal level, that getting down to the small and development business, through some of not with the specific that your client had pointed out to you, but we have tried to create the environment where individuals, let's say for advanced manufacturing, and maybe let me define advanced manufacturing is when you're using technology to some of the other that may be new to it. When we're talking about advanced manufacturing, that's when you're bringing in, incorporating technology in the manufacturing process. Not knowing the specifically detail, we have created opportunity to the small business program that we have added more funding to, and to support this through other acts that we're trying to support manufacturing through, that we want to make sure that those entities, like for instance, investments in small business, we're able to access funding through those programs, has been the avenue that we are putting money into. Into the second part of the question is, it's not just only, I wouldn't say narrow it down to saying, hey, we have invested money into what I said earlier, for companies to be able to access capital, in order to do their business. And we have put the money into the vehicles. Either they're coming through Commerce Department, or they're coming through SBA, or they're coming through CDFI. We have tried to encourage those things where you can access particular funding. And the program, and I think what I have here is that when your members are able to go through and look at some of these bills that we have passed, then knowing that that's one of the importance of it, knowing what a part of the Make It in America initiative. I can look here that we have in the 111th Congress, we did funding to go towards small businesses as relates to for jobs. So they had to create jobs and investment. So those particular details, I don't have that in front of me, but I will get you some information on some of those other things that throughout the bill. But I think if you look in the bill, that's where we have a lot of programs that have been developed and stuff, that monies that come in. Now, going back to what you said, a large percentage of our funding comes towards the states. The states, we send money to the 50 states and the territories. Yes, that's where they're going to have a better sense of executing a lot of these programs, and not just saying access to a lot of capital, because we don't have grant money for small business. I want to make it, there's rare occasion if you're doing something like an SBIR program, Small Business Innovation Research. And if you're trying to do something like that, then those funds are available through that program. And those program is you take something from concept all the way to you scaling it, and then all the way to the third phase of moving something into the marketplace. If you have a piece of technology that are working, if you have some new technology ideas that you think that fit in the SBIR program, then you have to find which federal agency that you have a more of a fit with. And so there's over 2,400 different programs that are out there in the federal government. There's a plethora of programs as it relates to small business in different agencies, and we just have to figure out the one that fit within in the construct of what some of your members want. That's why we want to make sure that you're fully aware of all of the policy decision has been around manufacturing, and better understand where we're trying to do at the national level. And then when you engage in at the state level, I'm not familiar with what you said, that somebody said about a particular program that's going to be at the state level for manufacturing, but we did put money in during the pandemic to help spur manufacturing when we were facing the pandemic. So,
Yeah,
that could be opportunity talked about where Governor Hogan, through the Department of Commerce, where some of those programs would come through, or through the Department of Health to deal with personal protection gear.
Understood. Let me. You mentioned something, and I think it's a good segue to bring in your colleague from the Small Business Committee of the Senate, Mr. DeMarcus Walker. And I'm going to also mention that I think one of the programs, Terrance, that is accessible, and it did come through the American Rescue Act, is the Small Business Credit Initiative. And that I know was putting money into minority communities to work on innovation and improvements, particularly around manufacturing. So I'll share that information with our attendees today as well. Well, DeMarcus, welcome, and thank you for joining us. You've spent some time now in the Small Business Committee, and I know you've worked on a number of initiatives to include the infrastructure bill, as well as the reauthorization of the SBIR and the STTR programs. You want to share a little bit with us at this point in time, and how might this impact on our minority manufacturing community?
I will do. Well, first off, thank you for having me. I'll speak for the chairman when I say he's very grateful for the work that MBDA has done for all of our minority businesses, and particularly manufacturers. And I will say this has been a great couple 2 years for manufacturing opportunities for the country. I will say, so I guess I can start with the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Funds are already being dispersed and are available among state and local governments. For small and medium-sized contract manufacturers in particular, the Act provides millions in grants and funding for those who wish to build or renovate their existing facilities to further manufacture projects that will progress us forward as we try to navigate this new environment that we're facing. Like I said, these funds are already available. Those who wish to engage in these opportunities, they can use their conventional options, such as SAM.gov. Continue to use the keywords that they are familiar with. Those opportunities will still be present. The larger participants in the program will be, in terms of contracting, will be Department of Transportation, Energy, Commerce, and EPA. And I want to couple this with efforts that the administration has made over the past year and a half. For example, earlier this year, the administration launched a government-wide effort to conduct outreach and provide technical assistance to these smaller manufacturers who may not be too familiar with the opportunities that are being available by the bipartisan infrastructure bill. For example, the Department of Interior is hosting industry days, which is aiming to publicize contracting and financial opportunities for small disadvantaged businesses. The Department of Transportation is also doing this in collaboration with the SBA and NBDA. They're doing a similar outreach program to ensure that the smaller manufacturers are able to see and access these opportunities that are being created. And a major goal of this department is to carry out the effort needed to connect these small businesses with those opportunities that are being created. And to help small disadvantaged businesses, access capital to compete for contracting opportunities created by the bipartisan infrastructure bill. The SBA is also connecting small disadvantaged businesses to small business investment companies to ensure that they have the financing needed to be equipped to access these opportunities that are created by the funding. So this is something that the chairman was really involved in ensuring that these smaller businesses are able to get the financing needed to be part of this solution towards rebuilding our economy, because that they have as great of a role as our larger manufacturers to ensure that we can move forward and make sure there's increased equity among contracting opportunities. As we already know, the bill also codified the NBDA program. This provides much needed stability to the agency to ensure that they are equipped to help our smaller and minority-owned businesses access these opportunities. So we're really happy for that. That's been a years-long effort on behalf of the committee and particularly the chairman. And so we're grateful that the NBDA can continue to play a major role in facilitating these opportunities for our minority businesses. And this is all happening in conjunction with the federal government's role to increase our set-aside capital dollars to small businesses. Last year, the administration announced a goal to set aside at least 15% in contracting dollars to small disadvantaged businesses by 2025. We are well on our way to meeting that 15% goal. For example, this summer, the administration announced that they have met and exceeded their statutory equity goal of 5%. This past year in 2021, they've allotted 11% of all available contracting dollars to small disadvantaged businesses. So that's in effect, that's an effort that the administration is making in conjunction with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, again, to ensure that funding is being made available to the small manufacturers. And in addition to the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we also reauthorized and extended the SBIR STTR program. For those who are familiar with the program, it's still relatively the same program that you've been engaging in for the past couple of years. It just makes sure that the largest participants in the program are developing and commercializing their technologies to ensure that the federal government can take advantage of these technologies while making sure that we as consumers are able to access them as well. And so those are a couple of things that the committee has worked to work towards and to progress towards for manufacturers. And like I said, I'm very happy of the work that the committee has done. I'm happy of the work that MBDA has done to ensure that manufacturers are aware of the opportunities made available, and to ensure that they again are part of this role to making sure that they can make sure we can progress the country forward and provide those manufacturing opportunities for those who wish to access them. So I don't want to take up too much time. I'm interested to participate in the Q&A, so I'll leave it there.
Thank you, DeMarcus. One of the things that came out as you were speaking, and I think it came up as a result of Terrance's comment, was this idea of getting small business to participate in the SBIR and the STTR program. And this has been a recurring theme because we had a similar conversation last month. But one of the very specific questions was, who monitors participation, particularly of MBEs of color in that program? And I don't have that answer. Might you have that answer?
That's something I can definitely get back to you about. I know that as we were trying to reauthorize the program, we were very interested in including data to make sure that the people who we wanted to participate in the program, particularly the smaller and minority-owned businesses, were able to access those awards. That's something that we were really aware of. I know data collecting is done at the agency level, and the SBA is required to collect that and do reports and make sure the Congress has an idea about where these opportunities are going, who's being able to delve into those awards. So that's something I can definitely get back with you on and provide more information on.
We'd appreciate that. And we want to share that information with our attendees today. This has been a great conversation, and I'd like to bring everybody into a discussion about what we see as a result of the future of manufacturing and how we might be able to leverage some of these resources that are coming into our states and our local municipalities to support manufacturing. So I'm going to ask everybody to come back on, if you will. And Natalia, you've heard a lot. So, you are representing our client base. And I know, so let me be somewhat transparent. And I know that one of the things that you've been working on, Natalia, is expanding your efforts to do federal contracting. I know you do quite a bit of state and local contracting. And even with the sale of asphalt products, it's generally to private sector and maybe some to state and local. But as I understand it right now, not directly to the feds. Do you want to kind of comment on what you've heard?
Yeah, so it's so incredibly exciting to hear about all the program that is going on. And I am sure that all of us here on this webinar are going to follow up and take a look at so many of the things that both of you have spoken about. One of the things that is a little challenging is, as a smaller business, having the bandwidth to really go out and look into and understand all of the opportunities that are available and how we can best utilize them, not only for our organizations, but for the organizations that surround us. So Scott, I think it would be really very well worthwhile if your team might be able to put on further educational components as to how to be able to access some of these programs. As I've been navigating into the federal space, what I've found is that it takes a lot of education for those who aren't already in it, because it's like speaking a new language, right? All new acronyms, all, a really robust re-understanding of who purchases what and why. And one of the more difficult things has really been, even for me, been really pinpointing those specific departments or specific contracting officers who actually need the services that I provide, right? Who need the cold patch, who need the aggregates, who need the asphalt or the millings or the reclamation services and whatnot. And I think maybe having even more education on a much more granular level would probably be a great service to all of us, because I am, as we speak, really launching an entire program around federal business development opportunities. One that came out of your MBDA office, Scott, when you had that grant program to allow some of these expert consultants on federal procurement processes. But you have to have the ability, the capital ability, as well as the bandwidth of time and energy to really project into the system, which it's massive, and those who understand it do very well. Those who don't, it's a harder fight, but we're looking forward to becoming more and more involved, and would appreciate any guidance that anyone on this panel, DeMarcus or Terrance or Scott, could provide us and anyone listening.
So we're going to take that on as something that I know we need to do more of, Natalia, and then I'm going to lean on Terrance and DeMarcus, because we can always do more with more resources, or we can leverage the offices of the Small Business Committee and that of Steny Hoyer to help us with this. So I don't want to, I couldn't lose this moment to my legislative folks to kind of needle them on helping us to do more for our clients.
Yeah. Scott, let me chime in on the business development at in the federal marketplace. If you're a small business operating in the DMV, Maryland, for example, have a lot of federal agencies and that are housed in Maryland, the DMV completely. So one of the things is that we have, and I say we, the federal government, there has been effort at the congressional level in years past to make this issue of understanding for a company like Natalia to understand how to access the federal marketplace. And one of the pieces always people ask, well, who's doing business? Who do I need to contact? There was a huge investment into developing the federal procurement database, Next Generation, where all federal contracts and all information is there free for you to access. You go to that website, register your name, get a password, and you can kind of, as a marketing strategy, say, well, who's buying asphalt, for example, in this region? Okay, and we know that we have runways, for example, we have runway asphalt, we have just general asphalt on federal facilities that they have, they need to do asphalt for. But we also say, well, we also have runways at Andrews, Pax River down there that we know that we're operating. Well, if you're up in Baltimore and you're trying to get to Pax River to help with runway be out there on a runway, there's a time limit that you have on
Yeah.
asphalt that's in those trucks, that I got to get this stuff off and I can't be jammed up in traffic around the Beltway, my people. So we try to make sure that you have access to that information. Now, it's teeterous that you need to have somebody on your team that can go and pull the record, run the reports, tell you who's the contract, who's the program manager. And then the second part with that is you just got to target, I think, there's 240 plus agencies around that you can target the one, 3 to 5 of them that's doing the type of business, selling, buying the type of service you might have. And so that information is there. We a few years ago, they developed what they call the SAM. This is like you brought all of the databases together for one place where people can register. Central contracting register. If you're not registered in that, you won't get paid if you got a contract, because you have to register in the central contract register. We have all of the certification program that can help you market, from the 8A, the Service Disabled Veteran, and the GSA scheduler schedule. That is a thing. So there's information there. And the biggest piece is it's a lot of information. And we have thought that we have tried to synthesize it and give you the place to go to figure out through this through the federal procurement data system, next generation, for you to know, oh, these agencies are buying asphalt. Here's the program person. Then you can do your marketed effort to try to do outreach. And in some cases, our office can help to facilitate meeting with their small business office, so that you can have somebody on the inside can kind of help navigate their structure. So in your case, you know that the Defense Department is buying asphalt, but where are they buying it? Either at Aberdeen, either at Fort Detrick, to pave the roads around the bases, Fort Meade, and places like that. So it's there, but it's a lot of information, but we try to synthesize it, giving you the information. And I have used those reports. I have ran it to see if they work. They do provide you with a lot of intel on the agency. Before you go to an outside consultant, I would recommend go to the database that we all have purchased through our tax dollars, and utilize it. We spend millions of dollars on developing this database for small businesses and anybody that want to figure out how government is spending the money to be good steward. And you can go there and get that, and then you can have contact. They give you the actual contact of the program person, email addresses and stuff like that, and that you can start doing your outreach to them. And then we have some other PTAC and all of those other partners that can help MBDA to bring, we have a program at Bowie State, I think a program at Morgan State, to help with federal businesses that want to get into the federal marketplace that's available there. So we do have a host of programs and things that you can access that can help you in that.
Thank you, Terrance.
Sorry about that. I didn't want to take that long, but that is important. That's important because there's a lot of opportunities around here. But the biggest thing is that I think run parallel with that is that the opportunity, you need access to capital in order to make any of these deals come to reality. And we have to work even more diligent to making sure that minority firms are able to access the capital that they need to do government contracting. And you got to pay payroll. You got to cover the payroll in the first, 60 days or something before you get an invoice made. And that could be a challenge sometimes for companies. So
Terrance, thank you, because you ran off a bunch of different resources. And as you were running them off, I started typing in the chat so people would know. You mentioned sam.gov. You talked about the procurement technical assistance centers, which are located in every state. And in Maryland, we have several on different university campuses. And I also mentioned the FPDS, which is the Federal Procurement Data System, which allows you to kind of figure out who is buying what, where, when, how much. And there are just a number of bivia tools. what I will say, because many of the questions that came in, questions about SBIR programs, questions about where people might find investment dollars in new ideas and initiatives. We're not going to be able to address all of those on this webinar. So I want to remind people of how to reach us. Our office number is 443-401-0242, 443-401-0242. Or as it relates to the MiHUB webinar series, you can always send us an email to info@mihubcoop.com. That's info@mihubcoop.com. Encourage you to reach out to us to also learn more about the MiHUB Cooperative. This hour has gone really fast. So I'm going to give each of you really like 30 seconds. Any advice and counsel you want to share with the attendees today, or contact information. Terrance, we'll start with you. We'll
Okay.
save the latest for last today.
It'd probably be best for you to send, and you're more than welcome to send my email address around to your members, and they can contact me, and I can follow up, and we can kind of, go through some things. But I would also suggest that, and I think that DeMarcus brought it up, is and you did too, the SBIR and the technology transfer program. Those are great opportunities for small minority business, and also partnering with an HBCU. And we have 4 tremendous HBCUs that do high-level research, and to have that partnership with somebody like that on a project, they are fit to do all of that thing. Because I will tell you that we also recognize those institutions able to do business with the federal government. So you can team and partner with an HBCU if they have the capabilities that you're looking for to bid on federal contracts. And so we are all of these institutions are available to help and be a partner on those type of things. And I think that's one of the things that people are not aware, that they do have a role in the federal procurement process too, and they are eligible to bid on federal contracts, just like any of the small businesses that are on this call too. So
thank you, Terrance. All right, DeMarcus. That was more than 30 seconds, Terrance, but I love you. Go ahead.
my apologies.
I'll try to keep this under 30. I want to reiterate again, the Biden administration is very, very intentional in making sure that smaller businesses, in particular minority-owned businesses, are aware of the procurement opportunities that are being created by these recently passed bills. The SBA, DOT, the Department of Transportation, and the MBDA are all hosting events, regional and virtual events across the country, to make sure that smaller businesses are aware of these opportunities, and they're providing technical assistance as to how they can access these opportunities, as well as funding to make sure they are equipped to carry on those opportunities once they come. So again, I can provide this information later to Scott, and he can share with everybody else, but those opportunities are available, and the government is more than willing to make sure that we are collaborating with our smaller businesses, make sure we can keep this forward.
Thank you, DeMarcus. And Natalia.
So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that if you need any help at all, or if I can be of any assistance to you in your journey, just please contact me. I'm at natalia@mlewisproducts.com or natalia@mlewisconstruction.com. Please do reach out for anything. If you are someone who uses the materials that I provide and would like to have a conversation about that, I'm here.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank each of you for participating in our program today. Your participation has enlisted a number of questions coming from our attendees, and I apologize to everyone that we did not get to every subject matter that was raised in the questions. We're going to do our best to come back to you. I am working with the staff to hopefully capture every question that we received. So we won't close this out right now, but I will end it for our panelists. And once again, we ask that you come back again next month. I think in the month of December, what we will be doing are the highlights from MiHUB Mondays for 2022. So we'll ask you to kind of rejoin, and you'll get a link to all of our webinars for the year. Once again, if you have any questions of the NBDA Advanced Manufacturing Center or the MiHUB Co-op, please reach out to us. Our phone number is 443-401-0242. And the email is info@myhubcoop.com. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again in the future. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.